Tribe, I become invincible with my 10,000 times bonus from the start. Chapter 121, Spineless. After Everlasting's death, the morale of his troops dropped by a large margin and they began to flee blindly. Li Cheng then ordered the frost dragons to attack and kill as many of them as they could. A few minutes later, Li Cheng commanded Sylvia to land. They arrived at a deep pit formed by an explosion and found a corpse that had been frozen by the dragon's breath. It was the priest of the Church of Darkness, Joyce. Li Cheng casually picked up the spoils of war on the ground and the system's voice rang at the right time. Ding, dong, you've triggered a 10,000 times amplification and obtained the spoils of war, the Church of Darkness's secret key, number 165. Ding, dong, you've triggered a 10,000 times amplification and obtained the spoils of war, a legendary dark magic staff. Ding, dong, you've triggered a 10,000 times amplification and obtained the spoils of war, 10,000 Church of Darkness tokens. A legendary staff had dropped. Naturally, Li Cheng did not care about this. His gaze fell on the other two items. Church of Darkness's secret key, number 165. Description: the secret key used by the Church of Darkness. It can open certain doors. Level 1. Effect: opens door number 165 in the Church of Darkness. The followers of the Goddess of Darkness were spread throughout the continent, so the number of churches was naturally not small. The higher the serial number, the longer it took to build. Number 165 most likely signified a large-scale church. If the secret key in his hand could open door number 165 of the Church of Darkness, of course, Li Cheng would not be so bored as to attack them just yet. That would be a thoughtless thing to do, something he definitely would not choose to do. Finally, there were some tokens that emitted a pitch-black light. Church of Darkness token. Description: a token used internally by the Church of Darkness. Level 1. Effect: after submitting it to the Church of Light, it can be exchanged for 10,000 contribution points. Li Cheng nodded in understanding. It was as he presumed. He had seen the Church of Darkness tokens before. In his previous life, this thing was a hot commodity. Normally, it would only be dropped by the higher UPS of the Church of Darkness and one token was equivalent to 10,000 contribution points. After a 10,000 times increase, Li Cheng had obtained 10,000 tokens, which translated to 100 million contribution points. It was enough to exchange for a title of nobility. Li Cheng thought about it and decided to give these tokens to Pearl. He wanted her to exchange for a title. It was a logical choice that would help her in the future, no matter what she planned to do. To Li Cheng, having 100 million contribution points was not very meaningful. He had to spend his money wisely to maximize his benefits. After giving chase to those believers of the Church of Darkness who had fled, Li Cheng called out to his Frost Dragon army. As for those believers who were scared out of their wits, there was no need to chase them anymore. They were just some trash soldiers and it would only waste their time chasing them down. It was not worth it. Li Cheng waved his hand and entered the shadow world through the teleportation portal again. He had only left for less than 10 minutes but the situation of the entire battle had become very clear. The outcome of the battle was already decided when Li Cheng entered the battlefield. After losing a few commanders, the Alliance army quickly fell into chaos. At the same time, Luna's frost marksmen quickly tore a big hole in the enemy formation. Their clearing efficiency was too high, almost comparable to the Dragon army. At this moment, the players of the Divine Dragon Alliance were chasing after the Alliance army. They had the buff of rapid march, making it impossible for the Alliance army to run away from them. Moreover, there were also the Heavenly Knights and the Shadow Assassins led by Lillian in the south, and the thousands of soldiers led by Pearl behind them. At this time, Purple Rose saw that Li Cheng had returned and ran to him excitedly. She hugged his arm and shouted, "Netherworld! We won! We won! Is there a need to make such a big fuss?" Li Cheng was speechless. In this battle, Li Cheng did not use any tactics, nor did he arrange any of his troops. Instead, he used his strength to crush the enemy. The alliance army could not break through their defenses at all. They were too rubbish. Hence, directly crushing the enemy with brute force was the best tactic. Purple Rose rolled her eyes at Li Cheng. What do you know? It's been a long time since our Divine Dragon Alliance won by such a margin. Tell me, how can I not be excited? This time, it could be said that they had won more with less, defeating multiple alliances in a go. Although the deciding factor was Li Cheng, the Rose Guild had also contributed a lot. As the commander-in-chief of the Divine Dragon Alliance, Purple Rose's popularity would definitely increase by a large margin. She also thought that the number of members joining the Rose Guild would definitely soar in the coming period. At that time, the Rose Guild would definitely surpass the War Soul Guild and the Prideful Guild by a large margin. As she was thinking, Purple Rose realized she had been hugging Li Cheng for a long time. Her chest was tightly pressed against Li Cheng's shoulder and it was even slightly deformed. She hurriedly pushed Li Cheng away, and her white jade-like earlobes instantly turned red. Li Cheng also noticed it, but he was not embarrassed. Compared to Lillian's, Purple Rose's bust was still undeveloped. The one who should be embarrassed should be Purple Rose. At this time, Li Cheng glanced at the battlefield and said to the bashful Purple Rose, "Don't be shy. Go and command the battle. Try to end it by evening." Hearing this, Purple Rose glared at him, stomped her feet, and said, "Who's shy?" After saying that, she immediately ran away. Li Cheng pursed his lips, thinking that Lillian was obviously the cuter one. He found Sylvia again and started looking for the last target. The leader of the 100 Flowers Alliance was 5 km per second. Li Cheng still remembered that his name was Hao Er, and he had a deep impression of him. This guy was famous for playing tricks, and his personality was capricious. Later on, he would lead the 100 Flowers Alliance to surrender to the demons and stab the Divine Dragon Alliance in the back. But now nothing was certain. A few minutes later, Li Cheng's eyes lit up. He saw Hao Er among the crowd. At this moment, Hao Er was looking at Li Cheng in fear as he spoke in panic, "Impossible. Peerless Prideful's the guild leader of the 3 great guilds of the Divine Dragon Alliance. With the Everlasting's help and the epic boss, how could your territory not be destroyed?" Li Cheng picked at his ears and ignored him. He hated people like Hao Er from the bottom of his heart. He had no backbone at all. He was simply a weakling. His words were like flies, buzzing and annoying. Chapter 122, Netherworld is a dog with authority? Seeing Li Cheng's reaction, Hao Er's face turned red with anger. He was, after all, the guild leader of the 100 Flowers Alliance. He was also someone who could speak on the Alliance Forum, but Li Cheng had actually ignored him? Just as Hao Er was about to say something, Li Cheng suddenly waved his hand lightly. The countless frost dragons in the sky immediately spat dragon's breath that washed over the ground. Instantly, the entire world fell silent. Li Cheng let out a sigh of relief. It was a pity that the 2 worlds had not fused yet. Otherwise, he would have killed this weakling. However, there was not much time left before that time came. Thinking of this, Li Cheng looked towards the south where a dazzling light was flickering. Countless heavenly knights appeared in the sky. The rumbling sound of the mechanical war horses approached from afar. It was Lillian who had come from the south. After seeing Lillian, Li Cheng directly ordered, "Hurry up, leave no one alive." "Yes." Lillian replied coldly as she waved the long sword in her hand. The pursuit of the Alliance army continued until the evening. The players of the Divine Dragon Alliance were bloodthirsty. They fought all the way to the teleportation portal in the south, only to be urgently stopped by Purple Rose. If they went further south, they would enter an extremely dangerous area. Even so, the players of the Divine Dragon Alliance were extremely happy. This is so awesome. I killed more than 10 members of the White Elephant Alliance and picked up countless pieces of equipment. This is so awesome. Haha, I killed a lot of members of the 100 Flowers Alliance. The girls over there are really slutty. They knelt there and begged for mercy, but I just slashed them down. This is so awesome. Don't talk so much. Netherworld boss is my eternal god. That's right. If it weren't for the several buffs from Netherworld, we might not have been able to defeat them. Speaking of Netherworld, I've finally seen it for myself today. His dragon army can be said to be invincible. They don't leave any survivors wherever they go. Hehe, otherwise, how can Netherworld boss be called a boss? Without him, it's impossible for us to win this time. The players of the Divine Dragon Alliance were all very excited as if they had been injected with stimulants. They could not wait to fight for the next few days. Although the Divine Dragon Alliance had the largest number of players, there were also quite a number of alliances that had always been hostile toward them. In the past, in terms of single combat, the players of the Divine Dragon Alliance were definitely the number one in the world. However, they often suffered joint attacks from the other alliances, which was a disadvantage for them. In the 10 years since the Divine Dragon Alliance was established, there had been very few epic victories like today. Not to mention, the White Elephant Alliance, the 100 Flowers Alliance, and the Universe Alliance's troops were almost all wiped out. Even those who survived were chased to the south side of the portal, waiting for the consequences. If they were not killed by the monsters, they would starve to death. It all depended on which way they liked to die. Compared to the other leagues, the players of the Divine Dragon Alliance were equipped with all kinds of buffs. Their attributes were simply amazing. It was simply too satisfying. Compared to independent players and small and medium-sized guilds, the various large guilds were in an extremely difficult situation. Originally, they were sitting on the fence. If Cheng won, they could take advantage of the situation to pursue him and reap a lot of benefits. If Cheng lost, they would also kick him while he was down and stomp him to death. But now, they could not enter the Shadow World at all. As long as they were not Divine Dragon Alliance players who had left the Shadow World in advance, the same voice rang in their ears. Ding, dong, due to unknown reasons, your shadow passage has been closed. Those players who could not enter were so angry that their faces turned green. However, they had no other choice. They could not enter the activity map at all. What else could they do? Some of them had thought of attacking Cheng's territory. However, the news that Peerless, Prideful and Everlasting had been crushed when they attacked Cheng's territory had spread very quickly. How could they have the courage to do so? The most important thing was that if one wanted to attack Cheng's territory, the Church of Light would issue a warning against them. Just this alone made the players break out in cold sweat. Ding, dong. Warning. You're about to attack the territory of the God-blessed Earl Netherworld. This action will be treated as a war against the Church of Light. All the churches participating in the United Front of the Good Camp will launch an attack on your territory. Are you sure you want to proceed? The system's rumbling voice gave them a big fright. It almost broke their little hearts. Not to mention the United Front of the Good Camp, just the Church of Light alone had already scared them. How could they start a war? It was also because of Everlasting. He originally belonged to the evil faction, so the system did not give him any hints. As for Peerless, Prideful, he did not even touch Cheng's territory. Before he could launch an attack, he was instantly destroyed by Cheng. As a result, the various large guilds could only open their eyes wide, unwilling to see the players reap their rewards in the Shadow World. They could only wander around the main world. The battle in the Shadow World had long since attracted the attention of the entire alliance. It was also the first time that Cheng's powerful troops were known to the world. In the Eagle Alliance's Heaven Guild, Eve's small lips were open as she looked at the video in front of her in disbelief. In the video, Cheng's dragon army was releasing highly destructive dragon's breath. Countless frost marksmen were casually releasing their frost arrow rain. The heavenly knights were flying rapidly in the air, leaving behind beautiful lines. What was even more terrifying was that a group of shadow creatures were silently harvesting lives. Eve looked at the video in a daze, muttering, "Close combat, long range, assassin, special forces." Other than the meat shield soldiers, the rest were all equipped, and they were all top-tier soldiers. This is the strength of the Netherworld. This time, Eve felt an indescribable fear in the depths of her heart. This was the first time she felt this way ever since she got into online games. Just as Eve was about to enter the shadow world, the system's voice rang in her ear. "Ding, dong, due to unknown reasons, your shadow passage has been closed." Hearing the notification sound in her ear, Eve was stunned again. She muttered in disbelief, "Could it be? Netherworld's a dog with authority? He can control the system. Was that possible?" Then, she shook her head. It was different from others who said that Cheng was a cheat. As the #1 expert in the world, she knew very well that there were no cheats in this game. Then, she took a few deep breaths. Her bright eyes were filled with deep fear. At this moment, one of Heaven Guild's men rushed over as if he had something urgent to report to her. Chapter 123, Anti-Netherworld Alliance. Guild Leader, the Universe Alliance has proposed the establishment of the Anti-Netherworld Alliance and has invited us to participate. What do you think? Anti-Netherworld Alliance? Hee, interesting, Eve muttered thoughtfully. A few seconds later, a sharp glint flashed in Eve's eyes. She immediately said, "Tell them that Heaven will participate. I only have one request. The Heaven Guild must be the leader of the entire alliance." On the other side, Cheng, who was in the shadow world, naturally knew the mastermind behind this matter. He would not be soft-hearted when it came to the Heaven Guild. He immediately closed their shadow world passageway. It was not just them. There were other alliances as well. For example, the 8-Star Alliance and the Vastson Alliance. Cheng immediately closed all their passageways to the shadow world. Cheng's goal was very simple. None of the enemy units could return to the origin world alive. Cheng did not care about their opinions or actions at all. When faced with the overwhelming doubts in the real-world forum, Cheng directly replied, "That's right. So what if I'm the authority dog? If you have the ability, come and get it from me." Cheng's words immediately caused a huge stir in the real world. **CK, this Netherworld boss can't really be a cheat, right? I heard that Netherworld boss can shut down many people's access to the activity map. This can't be true, right?" "That's right. The shadow passages of the Eagle, 8-Star, Universe, White Elephant and a series of other Alliance members who have targeted the Divine Dragon Alliance have all been shut down. Ha ha ha, regarding this situation, I only want to say 2 words: well done. If their passages are closed, will their troops starve to death inside? Who cares, I just want to say that Netherworld boss did a good job. Anyway, I had fun, what about you?" Regarding this news, the players from the Divine Dragon Alliance were all happy, while the players from the other alliances were feeling really bad. The tribe officials were just playing dead and did not give any response regarding this matter as well. Those from the Alliance army with troops in the shadow world had bitter expressions on their faces. Were their troops really going to starve to death in there? Regarding the reactions of the others, Cheng naturally could not be bothered to pay attention to them. At this moment, he had already met up with his female heroes and Pearl. The current Pearl looked at Cheng with a hint of fanaticism. Cheng's actions today had made her completely believe that Cheng could help her take revenge. Pearl said, "Master, I've already chased them into the swamp in the south. Right now, many of the other alliance's guilds are squatting inside. As soon as they show their faces, we'll fight." Cheng nodded. Taking today's performance as an example, Pearl had already passed the test. With tens of millions of troops under her command, other than being flustered in the early stages, she handled it easily in the later stages. There was still room for improvement. He looked at the time. It was already past dinner time. This battle had been going on since that morning. Everyone needed to rest for a while. Thinking of this, Li Cheng opened the passage to the shadow world and said, "Let's go back to the territory to rest." After returning to the territory, Lillian volunteered to prepare dinner for everyone. Luna went to the altar to continue praying while Sylvia went to the warehouse to look for food. With her astonishing appetite, she would not be full even if she ate human food for 24 hours a day. Regarding this, Li Cheng tacitly agreed. As for Asilia, she simply sat down beside Li Cheng. The day's battle had exhausted her. Her exquisite face was filled with fatigue. She curiously asked, "Earl Netherworld, are the paladins this tired, too?" Hearing this, the corner of Li Cheng's mouth twitched involuntarily. He said, somewhat speechlessly, "That's because you used too much strength. How can you battle like that, constantly casting skills?" Li Cheng remembered very clearly that Alicia's mana had always been close to the empty. Whenever he was free, he even gave her a few bottles of potions to recover. But this saintess would immediately use her skills once she had mana. It would be strange if she was not tired after a day. Hearing this, Asilia said very seriously, "I can't just leave them to die." Li Cheng shrugged his shoulders noncommittally. He understood her perspective. Asilia was only a teenage girl. She was completely naive and had a little bit of a saintess in her. It was normal for her to have pity on others. Anyway, he was not compatible with her. When he thought of this, Li Cheng said, "So, Miss Saintess, you should go back to the church. Fighting may not be that suitable for you." Hearing Li Cheng's words, Asilia's expression changed and her small face immediately became miserable. "Earl Netherworld, are you trying to chase me away?" Li Cheng was a little speechless. Was it not obvious? What he was going to do next was indeed a little difficult to carry out in the presence of this saintess. For example, with the existence of Tyavanas, he knew that Lillian and Sylvia would not give him any problems. They maintained a neutral attitude toward good and evil. As for Luna, as long as Trella Fanny asked her to keep it a secret, there would not be any problems. However, with Asilia, Li Cheng had to be wary and keep it a secret. If any news were to be exposed, things would not be as fun anymore. When he thought of this, Li Cheng tried to say, "According to the church's rules, saintesses don't usually participate in battles. This is the paladin's business." "You." Before he could finish, Asilia snorted and interrupted, "You said it yourself. This is just a normal rule. Besides, experiencing the suffering of the human world's also a compulsory course for saintesses. The god of light encourages this kind of behavior." Li Cheng was rendered speechless once again. The woman opened and closed her mouth and Li Cheng could no longer be bothered to argue with her on this issue. If she wanted to stay, then he would let her stay. In any case, her appetite was pitifully small. Even if he had to support her for tens of thousands of years, it would not be a problem at all. No matter what, she was still an extremely powerful free wet nurse. Seeing that Li Cheng did not say anything, Asilia waved her small fists happily. She did not say anything else, as if she was afraid that Li Cheng would go back on his words. At this moment, Li Cheng opened his activity panel and looked at the activity information. Active Shadow Crisis. Target: eliminate evil creatures, 36 trillion/100 trillion. Half of the time had passed and the overall progress of the quest was less than 40%. However, Li Cheng was not worried. Today, almost half of the players' units had gone to fight, which was why this situation had happened. Chapter 124, On the Road to Power, one will inevitably offend the gods. In this situation, even without his leadership, the players of the Divine Dragon Alliance could complete the mission in one go. Thinking of this, Li Cheng pondered for a moment before he sent a message to Pearl. In the future, Li Cheng would not lead the holy war himself, and she would lead the players to complete the mission. At the same time, Li Cheng also made a simple plan of the range of activities they would be partaking in so that they would not go to dangerous places to offer up their lives. Pearl had tens of millions of troops, and with the route that he provided, he believed that she could easily complete the mission. After Li Cheng finished dealing with it, Lillian came over with dinner. The dinner was very sumptuous and delicious. Even Asilia could not stop praising it. After all, she was the saintess of the Church of Light and she had eaten countless delicacies. Lillian took a small bite of a roasted rabbit and said, "Lord, in just one day, we've already become enemies with 4 gods." "There are 4. Asilia blinked her big eyes and was puzzled. "The goddess of darkness, the god of the kobolds, an unknown demon king, and an unknown vampire matriarch," Lillian said while Asilia played with her fingers cutely. In the end, she nodded innocently as if realizing there were really 4 of them. Li Cheng also pondered for a moment. The goddess of darkness and the god of kobolds. He had killed their priests, so they were completely mortal enemies. As for the last 2, they were the consequences of Li Cheng taking Tyavanas as a slave. As the name implied, the daughter of the Demon King definitely had a Demon King behind her. She had become Li Cheng's slave. This could be considered kidnapping someone and causing trouble. As a Demon King, who could tolerate it? Tyavanas was a vampire herself. She was at the peak of the mythical realm, so she was probably related to some immortal level powerhouse. However, Li Cheng still smiled indifferently and said, "If we want our territory to become stronger, we naturally have to offend a lot of people. This is unavoidable." Things had already come to this point, so what was there to be afraid of? In his previous life, Li Cheng was only an ordinary player. He relied on the protection of an unreliable goddess to survive the attack of the demons. In terms of strength, he was neither strong nor weak. He was only at the middle level. With such strength, he dared to attack the divine kingdom of the goddess of luck. In this life, he had everything and was much stronger. Why would he be afraid of a few gods? What kind of joke was this? Hearing this, Lillian nodded obediently. No matter what, she would always be with her lord. What she said earlier was just a reminder. At the side, Asilia clenched her small fists and said confidently, "Don't worry, Earl Netherworld. We also have many allies. We're not afraid of them." If Asilia had the confidence to say this, it meant that the good camp was united. This statement was not to be taken lightly. Li Cheng nodded his head. If they found out that he had taken in a demon as a slave, they would probably attack him first. At this time, Li Cheng also remembered something. He opened the interface of his heroes. Lillian, Luna, and Sylvia were all stuck at level 40. Lillian needed to clear the trials of the Shadow World. This would be completed very quickly. Luna needed the Moonstone, and Sylvia needed to find the ancient ruins of the Dragon Empire. Thinking of this, Li Cheng asked, "Asilia, do you know about the Moonstone?" "Yes, it's a very beautiful stone. It glows." Asilia blinked her big eyes and nodded in response. Li Cheng was silent. D*MN, a stone that contains the moon goddess's divine power, and you only notice that it glows beautifully. As expected of you. Since Asilia has seen the Moonstone, can she get her hands on it? Thinking of this, Li Cheng took a few deep breaths and asked, "Do you have a way to get the Moonstone, Asilia?" "It's a little difficult." Asilia thought for a moment and shook her head. "The Moonstone's only available to the high priests of the Moonlight Church. They only showed it to me, they didn't even let me touch it. They're so stingy." Speaking of this, Asilia was obviously a little angry. However, seeing Li Cheng's eager look, she reminded him, "Speaking of the Moonstone, you can ask the Moon Dance Goddess." Hearing this, Li Cheng was stunned. Yes, how could he have forgotten about this? Trelafani's relationship with the Goddess of Moonlight was very good. Otherwise, How could one be called the goddess of the moon dance and the other the goddess of moonlight? A few years later, they would even form an alliance, and it was not just an ordinary alliance. Thinking of this, Li Cheng said in his heart, "Trelafani, can you get the moonstone?" Trelafani and Li Cheng were now in the same boat. Soon, her reply came, "No, I just asked the moonlight goddess. She said she needs you to go to the moonlight church personally." At the mention of this, Li Cheng slightly frowned. The moonlight goddess wanted to see him? He did not even know her. Compared to Trelafani, although the moonlight goddess was also a god linked to the moon, the strength between them was vastly different. Trelafani was the kind that could be easily beaten up. She could be stabbed to death with a finger. However, they were both kind-hearted and had a good relationship. They would not usually fight. Li Cheng thought about it. Perhaps because of his current reputation, the moonlight goddess also wanted him to help her. Thinking of this, Li Cheng could only agree and said, "I have some time to go visit her." Then, he sighed again. After the heroes under him were promoted to SSS-class, it was more and more difficult for them to break through. Lillian and Luna had already made the arrangements and he called Sylvia over. He initially wanted to ask her some things, but when Sylvia heard Li Cheng call out to her, she became extremely vigilant. What? Seeing this, Li Cheng was speechless again. Why did this woman have such a big opinion of him? However, Li Cheng did not take her seriously and said in a serious manner, "The ancient ruins of the Dragon Empire. Do you have any information?" Seeing that Li Cheng was looking for her because of that, Sylvia's expression eased up, and after a moment of silence, she said, "I heard from Mother that a long time ago, before the human civilization was born, the entire continent was ruled by our dragon tribe. However, dragons, no matter what color they are, live together. This ancient dragon empire is what we now call the Ancient Empire." Chapter 125, The First Armory of the Profound Empire. Li Cheng nodded. Of course, he knew some information about the ancient Dragon Empire. However, in his previous life, he knew that the Frost Queen Sylvia had found the remains of the Dragon Empire, obtained the inheritance, and received the support of countless dragons. That was why she had succeeded in establishing the later Dragon Empire. However, she was now actually going to find the ruins by herself. This was a little ridiculous. How would he know where the ruins were? Thinking of this, Li Cheng felt a headache coming on. He waved his hand and said, "Forget it. You can go and eat first." Seeing Li Cheng like this, Sylvia let out a light snort and sat down with a smile on her face. She was happy to see Li Cheng suffer. Li Cheng ignored her and said, "Everyone, hurry up and eat. We'll move out in half an hour." "We still have to move out." Asilia's face was bitter. She had nothing to live for. When it came to fighting, according to her personality, she was the busiest one. Of course. Li Cheng looked at the bright moonlight in the sky. At night, he had an extremely strong buff. He would be a fool not to use it if he had the advantage. After handing over the command of the Holy War to Pearl, Li Cheng led his troops to act alone. Among the troops he brought with him, other than Asilia, the rest of the units were all in high spirits. Staying up all night was not a problem at all. At this time, Li Cheng did not care about the bitter Asilia. He took out the last profound puppy or core from his backpack. At the same time, the system's voice rang in his ear. "Ding, dong. You're about to consume 200 million crystals to activate the legendary profound puppet. Do you confirm?" "Confirm. Ding, dong. The legendary profound puppet has been activated." The azure light of the profound puppet burst forth. In the next moment, the tall profound puppet suddenly appeared in front of him. Seeing this last profound puppet, Li Cheng nodded his head in satisfaction. With this, he had gathered all the legendary grade profound puppets. Now that the mission conditions were met, he only needed to send them to the ruins. Then, he would be able to obtain the right to recruit the profound puppets. They were champion soldiers. Even Li Cheng was a little excited at this moment. He took a few deep breaths and waved his hand. Let's go. After all the troops had rested and reorganized, Li Cheng once again entered the shadow world. He found the right direction and moved forward. Half an hour later, Li Cheng once again arrived at the remains of the profound empire. 007 seemed to have sensed something and had been activated long ago. The 4 legendary grade profound puppets reunited successfully. A dazzling light shot out from their eyes. Data docking. A few minutes later, these big fellows were finally done docking. 007 bowed its head respectfully to Li Cheng and said, "Respected descendant of the royal family, thank you for everything you've done for the empire." Li Cheng nodded. "Let's go and find the remains of the princess." "Yes, Your Majesty," the 4 profound puppets said in unison. Then, they moved toward the north followed by countless small profound puppets. There were hundreds of thousands of them. After marching for a few hours, the profound puppets finally stopped. Li Cheng looked at the scene in front of him. This was an extremely spacious plain. At a glance, it was covered in clouds and mist. It was also extremely flat. Suddenly, the 4 legendary profound puppets released an extremely huge amount of profound energy. Rumble! The entire ground was shaking, and in the next moment, the originally flat ground suddenly split apart, revealing countless stairs that extended underground. At the same time, the system's voice rang in Li Cheng's ears. "Ding, dong, you've discovered a special map, the Profound Empire's first armory. Your reputation value has increased by 100. Ding, dong, you've triggered a 10,000 times increase. Your reputation value has increased by 1,000,000. The so-called armory was a place used to forge war materials. The largest and most powerful war machines in the Profound Empire were all sorts of profound puppets. At this moment, the profound puppets walked down the steps. Li Cheng did not hesitate and led his troops to follow them. Under the stairs, the entire underground space was extremely spacious. It took up a huge area. Li Cheng was secretly astonished when he saw it, as he did not expect there would be such a large space in the shadow world that had yet to be developed in his previous life. Moreover, this place did not seem like it was formed naturally. The surrounding walls were meticulously polished and there were all kinds of patterns on the load-bearing stone pillars. It was obvious that they were man-made. This made Li Cheng curious. Could this be the shadow world during the era of the Profound Empire? They had even built such a large armory in the shadow world. In this armory, Li Cheng saw countless profound puppets in a downtime state. Some of them were already fully assembled while some were only half assembled. Li Cheng roughly counted the number of profound puppets before him. There were several millions of them. Moreover, they were the same size as the legendary profound puppets. In other words, there were several million legendary profound puppets here? Even with Li Cheng's current knowledge, he was still shocked. A legendary profound puppet was countless times more powerful than a champion soldier. Any random one of them would be a big boss. There were actually millions of them here. If all the puppets were activated, they would be able to flatten all the empires in the origin world without the slightest bit of pressure. Right at this moment, the 4 legendary profound puppets stopped under a statue. Suddenly, another mechanical voice appeared in the spacious hall. When it first appeared, Li Cheng thought it was the system's voice, but it did not sound right. It was the voice of one of the puppets left behind by the Profound Empire. Hint. Your bloodline is being tested. Please, wait patiently. Hint. You're a descendant of the imperial family. Your armory access points have increased by 10. Hint. Welcome to the first armory, respected descendant of the imperial family. The Profound Empire had developed countless dark technologies. This voice was now heard by Li Cheng. It was the voice of the entire Armory's AI. Li Cheng did not have time to think too much before the system's voice rang in his ear. Ding, dong, you've completed the only hidden SSS-class mission, the Sealed Ruins. Ding, dong, you've triggered a 10,000 times amplification. Your reward is 100 billion gold coins, the recruitment authority for the Profound Puppet, and 500 billion shadow points. Ding, dong, you've unlocked the new building, Profound Puppet Processing Factory. Ding, dong, you've triggered a 10,000 times increase. Your access points have increased to 100,000. Chapter 126, Li Cheng, I am just a worker? All the Profound Puppets were in position and the mission had been completed. The reward was not bad. 10 million gold coins and 50 million shadow points. Even he did not get a 10,000 times increase, it was still a big number. However, to the current Li Cheng, neither gold coins nor shadow points were of any use. He really did not lack any of these. The most precious thing was still the ability to recruit the Profound Puppets. However, Li Cheng did not immediately check their attributes. His gaze fell on the statue in front of the entire hall. This statue was of a petite girl. She was not considered tall, but her figure was still extremely explosive. The parts that were supposed to be protruding were protruding and her soft hair reached her waist. Every detail of the girl's face was also slightly perked up, almost as if the statue was a living person. All of this was not a problem. The problem was that Li Cheng felt that the girl in front of him looked very familiar. He could not recall who she was, so he turned his head and asked, Lillian, do you think she looks familiar? Lillian also stared at the statue for a while and said, it's Sister Ella. Li Cheng was speechless. What was going on? What did this have to do with Ella? At this moment, a faint shadow appeared in front of Li Cheng. A mysterious fluctuation suddenly appeared as the shadow slowly took shape. A few seconds later, Ella stood in front of Li Cheng. This time, Ella did not use a phantom, so Li Cheng could see her face clearly. With this comparison, the similarity between Ella and the statue was more than 99%. Her graceful figure was wrapped in a tight-fitting long dress, but it could not hide her proud figure at all. Even in the shadow world, there were only two colors, black and white. Her exquisite and beautiful face was also incomparably beautiful. At this time, Ella smiled at Li Cheng beautifully. Thank you for everything you've done. Her voice suddenly paused, as if she did not know what to call him. As if he could read Ella's mind, Li Cheng said, you can call me Li Cheng. Anyway, he was not afraid that Ella would tell the other players. He asked, so, can you tell me what's going on now? Ella smiled. Hehe, why don't you guess who the last princess of the Profound Empire was? Who do you think she is? Li Cheng was really speechless. The last princess of the Profound Empire that Ella was talking about was not a joke, right? Seeing Li Cheng's expression, Ella became even happier. She smugly patted her own chest. Human, you guessed it right. It's me. Li Cheng's mind was still a little muddled. What the F***ck was going on? This silly goddess in front of him, a piece of trash that was going to fall in a few years, was actually the princess of the Profound Empire? This was really unbelievable. One had to know how domineering the Profound Empire was back then. Their existence was heaven-destroying, earth-destroying, and air-destroying. All kinds of dark technology were produced in an endless stream. Many gods had to look to the Profound Empire as only they could do it. Hence, it was really awkward to regard this weak goddess as the princess of the Profound Empire. Ella could not imagine what Li Cheng was thinking. He could see that she was very happy now. She said slowly, anyway, you did well this time. I have an agreement with the Shadow Dragon. I can't release powerful divine spells in the Shadow World and I can't deploy any divine weapons. The cores of those profound puppets in the hands of a very powerful force. My followers in the mortal world are too weak and entering the shadow world's a suicide mission. Hence, after thousands of years, this place hasn't been activated. Well, I've told you everything I can tell you. You don't need to know what I shouldn't say. In the future, I'll give you a reward. You can leave now. After listening to her, Li Cheng roughly knew what was going on. These troops seemed to be Ella's secret troops, but she could not send them to the shadow world, so she could not activate these puppets. In his previous life, the Ella that had fallen had not activated the troops here either. Thinking of this, Li Cheng now understood. It was no wonder he sensed someone following and peeping on him ever since he came to the shadow world. Initially, he thought that it was because Trelafani was worried about him, but now, it seemed that it was because Ella was worried and had been following him in the dark. That meant that he knew the contents of the mission from the beginning, but chose to watch from the side. In other words, she wanted Li Cheng to be her employee. Disregarding everything else, the three profound puppets, which one of them was not located in a dragon's den or a tiger's den. Moreover, each activation cost him 200 million crystals. Although Li Cheng did not lack crystals, he was just dismissed by someone with a sentence, saying that he could leave now? What did she mean by that? Thinking of this, Li Cheng's face instantly darkened. He had always been the only one who needed others to work for him. When had he ever worked for others? Now, his tone could not help but become cold. I say, Goddess Ella, you want to send me away with just one sentence? Seeing that Li Cheng seemed to be angry, Ella remained calm. She only smiled playfully. Why? Do you still want to attack me? Don't think that you can do whatever you want with Trelafani's protection. You must always remember your identity. You're only a human, and humans must always respect gods. As soon as Ella finished speaking, she gently waved her slender arm. Suddenly, the ground of the entire armory trembled and countless cannons that were emitting dazzling light suddenly appeared protruding from the walls. The pitch-black muzzles of the cannons were aimed at Li Cheng, ready to be fired at any time. At this moment, Lillian and the other heroes instantly prepared themselves for war. Li Cheng did not panic. He looked at the muzzles of the cannon that came out of the wall and cast a scouting spell. The information appeared in front of him. Profound Energy Cannon. Description: the highest defense facility produced by the Imperial Army of the Profound Empire. It can be deployed inside the city walls. Its power is enormous, enough to destroy the world. Level 1. Attack, 20 to 300,000. Skills. It was actually a legendary grade defensive facility, and it was also a special defensive facility. Compared to Li Cheng's legendary grade defensive towers, it was not the slightest bit inferior. Moreover, this place was densely packed and there were at least a few thousand of them. Li Cheng took a deep breath. This kind of defensive power was indeed a little too strong. Of course, to him, it was not a big problem, although it was a little troublesome. Just as Li Cheng was about to take out the dragon soul, the voice of the Armory's AI suddenly rang in the hall. Chapter 127, Li Cheng, when have I ever worked for someone else? Hint, you've set a target. Error code 138. An error code? At the mention of this hint, Ella and Li Cheng were both stunned. At this moment, Li Cheng seemed to have remembered something and immediately asked, check the permissions of everyone present. Ella turned her head and glanced at Li Cheng. Without saying anything, the voice of the AI soon rang out. Notification. The current permissions are as follows. Netherworld's permission value is 100,000. Ella's permission value is 100. Shelt's permission value is 20. When Li Cheng heard this, his eyes lit up. He understood what was going on. As a descendant of the royal family, he had a 10-point permission value, but the 10,000 times amplification system had quietly increased it by 10,000 times, bringing his permission value to the current 100,000 points. Ella only had 100 access points, so naturally, she could not attack Li Cheng, who had too many access points. When she heard the voice of the AI, Ella was completely dumbfounded. What was going on? 100000 access points? One had to know that everyone's access points were set by her, and the full access points one could receive was 100 points. What the F***ck was this 100,000 points? Ella did not have time to think. She heard Li Cheng's sneer. Now, I'll take over all access points and strip Ella of all her points. As soon as Li Cheng finished speaking, the voice of the AI echoed in the hall. Hint. All access points of the Armory have been transferred to Netherworld. Hint. All of Ella's access points have been removed. As the voice of the AI fell, the air in the hall became quiet. The interface of the Armory appeared in front of Li Cheng. He did not think too much. He snapped his fingers and all the cannons readjusted their positions. More than 1,000 black cannons were aimed at Ella's small face. At this moment, Ella had not recovered from her shock and was still in a daze. Li Cheng sneered. It was impossible for him to be a part-time worker. It had always been someone else who worked for him. When had he ever worked for someone else? The situation in the hall changed instantly. Panic appeared on Ella's delicate little face. She took a step back and said, Li Cheng, don't do anything rash. I'm a god. The corner of Li Cheng's mouth curled up and he repeated her words. Yes, you're a god, so you're probably not afraid of these legendary cannons. Ella was silent. Looking at Ella's reaction, Li Cheng felt great. Finally, he was not the speechless one. This feeling, to use words to describe it, was really F***ing great. Ella's reaction was within Li Cheng's expectations. This time, when Ella came to the shadow world, she had used incarnation. This was a higher level method compared to using a phantom or god's descent. The power of the incarnation was also much more powerful than the other two. As for the main body, it would consume a large portion of divine power after the incarnation. Ella had the ability to create an incarnation after using the divine power crystal that she obtained from Li Cheng. However, an incarnation was still an incarnation. At most, it had the mythical grade strength. With so many legendary grade defense facilities, Ella's ashes could be scattered in a second. If the incarnation died, the price that the god had to pay was much more expensive. With her current divine power, she would lose at least half of it. Thinking of this, Ella immediately cowered. She did not dare retaliate. If her divine power was lost again, she would not need to be attacked by others a few years later. She could just die on the spot at that moment. Thinking of this series of consequences, Ella quickly said, I apologize. Hearing this, Li Cheng was also stunned. He did not expect Ella to give in so easily, so he replied, You're really thick-skinned, Goddess Ella. In the history of the Lost Continent, it was rare for gods to bow to mortals and admit their mistakes. Seeing Li Cheng's sarcasm, Ella put on a sad face and quickly explained, I was just playing with you before. You've helped me so much, and we have such a good relationship. How could I hurt you? Hearing this, Li Cheng rolled his eyes again. He could feel that Ella did not harbor any malice or killing intent. She was indeed joking with Li Cheng. Otherwise, based on Li Cheng's personality, he would not have said so much nonsense to Ella. Instead, he would have immediately fired and scattered her ashes. Right now, Li Cheng did not want to bother with her anymore. He checked the entire armory. After obtaining full permission, he would be able to see all the hidden information. The first armory of the Profound Empire. Description: a large-scale armory of the Profound Empire's 76th Princess Ella. Designed and completed by the Empire's scientist, Shelt. Level: 10, Max. Area: 2 million. Architecture: Control Center, Profound Energy Extractor, Profound Storage Space, 50 Profound Empire Processing Lines, large conference room, large lounge. Deployment, 320,000 profound puppets, legendary, not activated. Defensive facilities, 4360000 profound energy cannon, legendary, 5650000 profound traps, legendary. Magic, 3198000/9999 trillion. When Li Cheng saw the details of the armory, he was shocked. First, there were all kinds of buildings, many of which were dark tech buildings from the Profound Empire. For example, that profound energy extractor. No matter how many crystals he need to extract, they would all be extracted in an instant. Its upper limit was 9,999 trillion, almost infinite. As for the magic of the entire armory, the limit was the same number. As for the profound storage, it was a special storage space that used spatial magic, and the storage limit was also 9,999 trillion. The durability was extremely high and there were all kinds of spells protecting it. The safety factor was absolutely full. This could be said to be very timely for Li Cheng because his territory was already filled with all sorts of resources. A few hundred trillion resources were impossible to relocate if he relied on the system's space alone. There were also a lot of soldiers, and if he were to only consider those legendary grade profound puppets alone, there were more than 3 million of them. One had to know that these were legendary grades, an existence that was countless times stronger than the crown rank soldiers. If all of these powerful profound puppets were activated, without the appearance of immortal grade soldiers, it would be enough to intimidate the entire lost continent. Chapter 128, SSS-class mission. Li Cheng touched his chin, wondering if he should bring these things back to his territory. Ella seemed to have read Li Cheng's mind. She was so anxious that she almost jumped up. She hurriedly said, "Li Cheng, don't do anything rash. These are my things." "Oh? Your things? Give them an order, then. If they listen to your command, I don't mind you taking them away," Li Cheng said as he pointed at the armory. He was almost amused by her. Ella remained silent. Ella was so angry that her teeth were almost crushed as she gritted them. She took a few deep breaths and her chest heaved. She thought that she, the grand phantom goddess, was an existence that was admired by everyone. When had she ever been wronged like this? Therefore, Ella was angry. Seeing that Li Cheng would not budge, Ella immediately walked to Lillian's side. With a sad little face, she grabbed Lillian's palm tightly and she said while sobbing, "Lillian, this is my dowry. If this guy takes it away, how can I get married in the future?" Lillian was silent, and so was Li Cheng. Everyone was speechless. Was this still the phantom goddess who was admired by thousands of people? "You said you're a god, but can you be more shameless?" Lillian thought about what Ella said and asked thoughtfully, "Sister Ella, what did you say? These are your dowry?" Ella nodded and asked, "Do you know why I became a god in the past?" "Why?" Lillian followed up very cooperatively. Ella did not care about this. Instead, she said angrily, "Because father betrothed me to a man I didn't know at all back then. So in a fit of anger, I became a god. Out of sight, out of mind." Hearing this, the corners of everyone's mouths twitched. They were speechless. How could becoming a god come out so easily from Ella's mouth? What did she mean when she said she became a god in a fit of anger? That was becoming a god, okay? How many people dreamed of becoming a god? One could easily be beaten up after saying such a thing. Seeing the disbelieving expressions of these people, Ella did not explain any further. Her eyes flashed with the light of her memories. "Back then, I was the first marshal of the empire. I was in charge of all the profound puppet corps. What you see here is the elite corps that accompanied me in my expeditions." Hearing this, Li Cheng nodded. In the past 1,000 years, there was no simple character who could become a god. Even though Ella was near the bottom among the gods and was a very weak existence, she was still a god after all. One could be certain that she was definitely an amazing existence when she was immortal. In short, these are my dowry. A few thousand years ago, on the day before my wedding, I brought them out of the king's city. Anyway, you can't take them away. Hearing Ella's unreasonable words, Lillian looked at Li Cheng speechlessly and gave him a signal to ask. Looking at Ella's little face that was about to cry, Li Cheng was completely speechless. Was this lady really a god? Ella, you're going to die anyway. You don't have the resources to activate these profound puppets. Why don't you just give them to me? Hearing Li Cheng say that she was going to die, Ella was enraged. Who says I'm going to die? She had just replenished a few hundred divine power crystals. She was doing very well now. She had never been better than today. Seeing this, Li Cheng pondered for a while and then said, "Let's form an alliance, Ella." An alliance? It was Ella's turn to be confused. Yes, it's an alliance. My goddess would be happy to be your friend. Li Cheng nodded and repeated what he had just said. Trella Fanny, who was far away in Scandinavia, was also speechless. She rolled her eyes symbolically, but she did not refute Li Cheng's words. On the contrary, she was very satisfied with Li Cheng's words when he referred to her as my goddess. Hearing Li Cheng's words, Ella frowned. At this moment, she was thinking about a lot of things. Trella Fanny was good at dancing. She was very beautiful and had a gentle personality. Who did not like her? Then, she subconsciously nodded and said, "We form an alliance, and then what?" Li Cheng said matter-of-factly, "Then, all of your things are mine." Do I look like an idiot to you? Ella shouted in protest. Li Cheng looked at her and sneered, "Aren't you?" Before he got the authority, Ella was still pointing her cannons at him. Now, she wanted to cheat him? He was very vengeful. As the saying went, Li Cheng took revenge from morning till night. Hearing Li Cheng's words, Ella's face turned cold. She smiled coldly and said, "Hee hee, you can't activate these profound puppets anyway." Hearing that, Li Cheng slightly narrowed his eyes and cast a scouting spell to check the information of these unactivated puppets. Profound puppets, unactivated. Activation requirements, 200 million crystals, obtain the activation key of the profound core. 200 million crystals was within Li Cheng's expectations. With the amount of crystals he had now, it was not difficult for him to activate all of these unactivated profound puppets. But what was that profound core key? Whether it was in his previous life or this life, he had never heard of it. Seeing Li Cheng's expression, Ella snorted. Back then, my father was afraid that I'd have to protect myself, so he set up a double insurance. If I wanted to activate these puppets, I'll need to activate them the same time as Shelt. Shelt? Li Cheng thought for a while. Looking at the access points ranking just now, Shelt was the one who placed third. He should be the strongest scientist in the Profound Empire. This guy's been dead for thousands of years, right? Where am I supposed to find him? Do I have to dig up his ashes myself? I know where he is. If you have his location, you can go kill him yourself. If you can kill him, I'll give you all of these things. What now? Ella explained as if sensing Li Cheng's doubts. Just as Ella finished speaking, the system's voice rang in Li Cheng's ear. Ding, dong, Phantom Goddess Ella has issued you a hidden mission, Imperial Scientist. Will you accept it? Li Cheng hesitated for a moment. Seeing how confident Ella was, he knew this mission was not that simple. However, what did he need to be afraid of now? Thinking of this, Li Cheng nodded. Accept. Ding, dong. You've successfully received the SSS-class mission, Imperial Scientist. Chapter 129, The Foundation of the Profound Empire. Imperial Scientist. Mission description: the Phantom Goddess was once the princess of the Profound Empire. She has entrusted you to kill the once strongest scientist of the Empire, Shelt. His physical body is dead, but his soul is still alive. Mission nature, only hidden. Mission difficulty, 5 billion. Mission details, clear the secret land, the Empire's first research institute, and kill Shelt. Mission reward. Hint, there are countless dangerous traps in the Empire's first research institute. Please, proceed with caution. Li Cheng was done reading the mission information. Even he could not help but be a little surprised. The difficulty of this mission was actually 5 billion. One had to know that even returning to the Eight Gods Mountain, which was home to the green-skinned monster, was only 8 billion in difficulty. This made Li Cheng wonder, what kind of terrifying existence is in this research institute? Although Li Cheng did not know what the Imperial Research Institute had, he knew how difficult it was by comparing it to the Eight Gods Mountain where one had to face more than 10 green-skinned gods of endless levels. Thinking of this, he made a comparison. Li Cheng was still temporarily accumulating strength. What he lacked now was the accumulation of time. It was impossible to take away the arms of the armory, but Li Cheng would not be that polite with some other things. Thinking of this, he walked toward the control center. Seeing the direction Li Cheng was heading in, Ella hurriedly stomped her feet and followed him. The control center was responsible for the operation of the entire armory. With guidance, Li Cheng arrived at a small room with all kinds of equipment that he had never seen before. In the center of the room, there was a basketball-sized ball that was emitting a faint light. It was the AI of the entire arsenal. Seeing Li Cheng's arrival, the AI let out a mechanical voice. Respected descendant of the royal family, welcome to the Arsenal Control Center. AI 0795, at your service. Hearing the AI's voice, Li Cheng did not say anything, but Ella immediately flew into a rage. She asked the AI, descendant of the royal family? Whose descendant is he? The AI looked at Ella as if it was wondering if it should pay attention to her. Seeing this, Ella was furious. This was her dowry. If the AI turned around and refused to acknowledge her, who would not be angry? In the end, the AI still said, Princess Ella, according to my data, the blood of Netherworld's sire and your husband's is 100% match. Hearing this, Ella immediately flew into a rage. Her angry roar instantly resounded throughout the entire control center. I don't have a husband. Ella was about to explode in anger. How could a person she had never even met become her husband? Moreover, Li Cheng was the descendant of that man and was now controlling the entire armory. This was too outrageous. Ella could not accept it at the moment. Or rather, she could never accept it. Li Cheng touched his nose and ignored Ella, who was screaming loudly. He said to the AI, I want all the blueprints. The AI immediately flashed with all kinds of lights and said, it's being processed. A few minutes later, the system's voice rang in Li Cheng's ears. Ding, dong, you've unlocked the new building, profound storage. Ding, dong, you've unlocked the new building, profound energy extractor. Ding, dong, you've unlocked the new building, Royal Academy of Magic. Ding, dong. As the system's voice fell, Li Cheng checked his backpack and found that there were countless building blueprints inside. The first ones were extremely useful, the profound storage and the profound energy extractor. Li Cheng checked through their information in turn. Profound storage. Description: the Profound Empire has an extremely deep understanding of spatial magic. Using spatial fluorites, they can create a giant space that can hold all the resources of the entire continent. Note that this space cannot hold living things. Level 1. Construction cost, 10 trillion crystals, 5,000 spatial fluorites. Effect, storage of resources. Profound energy extractor. Description: the Profound Empire has a deep understanding of magic energy. Using lasers, they can instantly cut crystals to produce magic energy. Level 1. Construction cost, 10 trillion crystals, 5,000 laser generators. Effect, convert magic energy. As Li Cheng saw the resources required for the 2 buildings, he was shocked by the numbers. It was fine if each building needed 10 trillion crystals. As for the spatial fluorites, after the spatial goddess disappeared, it had become a rare item in the black market. Each one would cost several billion gold coins. Of course, this was not a big problem for Li Cheng. As long as it was something that could be bought with money, it was not a problem in his eyes. As for the laser generator, it was an old antique of the Profound Empire. The manufacturing technology had long been lost. Similarly, it was not a problem for Li Cheng. Thinking of this, Li Cheng said to the AI, 0795, upload all the manufacturing blueprints. As soon as he said that, the AI's mechanical voice sounded. Data search. Respected descendant of the royal family, all the manufacturing blueprints have been uploaded. At the same time, the system series of voices rang in Li Cheng's ears. Ding, dong, you've unlocked the blueprint for the armrest of the profound magic staff. Please, craft it in the production line. Ding, dong, you've unlocked the blueprint for the sword hilt of the profound sword. Please, craft it in the production line. Ding, dong, you've unlocked the blueprint for the mythical grade profound armor. Please, make it in the production line. Ding, dong. As you've unlocked a lot of blueprints, you've obtained the diamond grade title, Skilled Craftsman. You've triggered a 10,000 times increase and obtained the mythical grade title, Master Craftsman. After a few minutes, the system's voice finally stopped. Li Cheng had unlocked countless blueprints in one go. There were all kinds of equipment, materials, enchantments, and even the production method of consumables. Li Cheng took a rough look and found that there were actually more than 5,000 blueprints. It had to be said that the foundation of the Profound Empire was still very strong. At this time, Li Cheng's gaze was on the things that were more useful to him now. Chapter 130, Li Cheng's Covenant. First of all, were the materials he needed now. Laser generator. Description: a component that can shoot out all kinds of lasers. Extremely fine workmanship. Level 1. Production cost, 200,000 crystals, 20 fluorescent stones. Production equipment, Profound Empire production line. After looking at the production cost, Li Cheng nodded. This one was relatively simple. Although fluorescent stones were also considered rare, they could be bought for only tens of thousands of gold coins. Next, there were 2 pieces of equipment and special items that caught Li Cheng's attention. Profound Armor. Description: a defensive equipment developed by the Profound Empire. When activated, it can generate profound energy on the surface for defense. Level 1. Type: military equipment. Grade: mythical. Attributes. Materials: 200,000 profound fluid, 100,000 highest level repeater, 2 billion crystals. Production equipment, Profound Empire production line. Profound energy cannon. Description: the highest defense equipment produced by the Imperial Army of the Profound Empire. It can be deployed within the city walls. It is extremely powerful and can destroy the world. Level 1. Type: defense equipment. Grade: legendary. Attributes. Materials: 100,000 profound cannon body, 50,000 profound energy extractor, 300 million crystals. Production equipment, Profound Empire production line. Seeing this, Li Cheng's eyes lit up. This was the first type of defensive equipment he had ever seen. And the profound energy cannons were the defensive equipment that had been embedded in the walls. Although there were several thousand of them in the hall, if they could be manufactured, they could be mass-produced. If the energy problem was solved, he could produce millions of profound energy cannons. When that time came, the scene would be spectacular. Thinking of this, Li Cheng began to look at the materials he needed. After a while, Li Cheng's eyes lit up. The materials needed could be produced through the production line. In the end, Li Cheng could buy everything with gold coins. In other words, he could manufacture these things. After looking at the equipment, Li Cheng set his eyes on his new title. Master Craftsman, Mythical. Description: Your wisdom spirit is shocking the entire continent. Type: only hidden. Grade: Mythical. Effect: when making equipment or items, your success rate is plus 80%. Looking at the information of this title, Li Cheng's pupils could not help but shrink. It had to be said that mythical grade titles had very powerful effects. The success rate was directly increased by 80%. It had to be known that when it came to legendary grade equipment and items, the success rate of creating these items usually did not exceed 10%, and the success rate of creating mythical grade equipment was even lower than 1%. Even the most skilled dwarf blacksmith, who was at the peak of mythical grade, would not have a success rate of more than 20% when it came to forging divine equipment. However, it was different with Li Cheng now. His initial success rate was already 80%, which was many times higher than others. Thinking of this, Li Cheng was ready to put the meeting with the Demon Chamber of Commerce on the agenda. He needed to buy a lot of materials, and the best NPC in the entire Lost Continent could only be from the Demon Chamber of Commerce. Closing the production panel, Li Cheng proceeded to open the construction panel. Among the many buildings, there were a few that were very useful. For example, the Royal Magic Academy, the Imperial Training Ground of the Profound Empire, the Royal Library of the Profound Empire. Among them, the Royal Magic Academy was a research-type building. It could conduct research on all kinds of magic damage. Compared to the player's basic building, the Human Military Research Department, it was much higher. Moreover, Li Cheng's class skills could grant all units magic damage. Therefore, this building was very compatible with Li Cheng's skills. The Imperial Training Ground of the Profound Empire was an advanced training building. Compared to Li Cheng's basic training ground, whether in terms of quantity or efficiency, it was countless times higher. With the 10,000 times amplification system, one night's worth of experience could feed the champion troops to the maximum level. The last building, the Imperial Library of the Profound Empire, was an advanced research building. It was an advanced version of the Battle Academy. It could study 3 skills at the same time, and the experience gained would be even more. Currently, Li Cheng had a lot of military skills that could not be upgraded. With this building, his combat strength would quickly increase by a large margin. The only pity was that the 3 buildings also needed production lines to produce all kinds of materials. Li Cheng did not have those yet. Thinking of this, Li Cheng closed all panels. After contacting the Demon Chamber of Commerce, these matters would no longer be a problem. This time, Li Cheng had made a lot of money, but Ella's face was pale and ashen. The thousands of years of accumulation of the Profound Empire had been taken away by Li Cheng in one wave. Compared to the millions of legendary grade Profound puppets, Ella valued these dark technologies more. This was the knowledge that countless generations of scientists had spent thousands of years working day and night to develop. It was a priceless treasure, but this time, it benefited Li Cheng instead. Ella's heart was almost bleeding. Li Cheng saw Ella's expression and smiled. "Don't look like that, Goddess Ella." Seeing Li Cheng's despicable expression, Ella became even more furious. "Do you believe that I'll send my kingdom to the main plane and fight you to the death?" Hearing this, Li Cheng raised his eyebrows. It seemed that Ella was on the verge of going berserk. If Ella really risked her life like that, the probability of dying together with him was very certain. There was no need for her to do anything. All she needed to do was to ram the kingdom of God into Li Cheng's territory. Even if Li Cheng's territory was outstanding in front of the other players, the kingdom of God would still turn it into ashes in an instant. Li Cheng comforted Ella and said, "Goddess Ella, we're allies. Isn't it normal to share technology? Hat. Ella only sneered in response and did not say anything else. Li Cheng saw that Ella was really angry, so he did not play with her anymore. He said to the AI, AI, restore Ella's authority. As Li Cheng's voice fell, the AI's voice rang at the right time, hint. Princess Ella's authority has been restored. Her current authority is at 100. Only now did Ella's expression soften a little. Of course, Li Cheng was not afraid that she would have a fallout with him. The longer one lived, the more one cherished their life. Li Cheng had also issued a secret order to the AI. If Ella wanted to destroy the armory and buildings, he would strip her of her authority. After doing all this, Li Cheng left with his troops. Before leaving, Li Cheng said to Ella, Ella, in the future, you'll understand how valuable it is exchanging these things for an alliance with me.